So good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all in this way. And my name is Kimmy Eisel, and I am the Communications Director of the Southwest Folklife Alliance. And we're here this evening to kind of launch really this audio stories, end of life audio stories of caregivers, end of life caregivers. And so we are right now in the process of working with a team of ethnographers. We've got 5 ethnographers, each of whom is paired with an end-of-life caregiver, mostly folks working at home. Some are in informal, caring for family members, and others are professionals. And so they're doing a deep dive, 8-month look at the lives of these caregivers. And the aim of that project is to celebrate that work, to amplify it, to bring the dignity that those caregivers deserve to the public arena. And but it's a commitment. Kathleen is here and she's one of the ethnographers. And so we also wanted to, it's a beautiful commitment and worthy, but we also wanted to give other folks a chance to have conversations with caregivers they know who aren't, that they're not going to be part of this longer study, because there's so many folks who are doing that work, and so many of us know people who are doing that work. So the audio stories is really an invitation to everyday folks to have a conversation with a caregiver and to inquire about their lives, dig, just kind of scratch the surface a little bit, because these will be short interviews, but to engage in that conversation. And it's really about that exchange. But we also are asking people to record those conversations so that we can then share them with the public. And so that's what we're here tonight to do. And we have brought on Ruxandra to help us with the audio listening and production of those stories that you all and people you know will be collecting. So before I turn it over to Rooks, I just want to share my screen and give a sense of how you can navigate through our website to find all the information and papers and downloads that you might need. So I'm going to do that now. Great, so this is our homepage, and right now we have an announcement for the Continuum End of Life Stories right on the homepage. This is a beautiful photograph taken by Kathleen Dreyer, a photographer who is in the Zoom room with us right now. She's also part of the ethnographic cohort, and she is one of the documentarians that helps show Tucson itself. So she has allowed us to use this beautiful photo of her father and her son near the end of her father's life. Do you want to say anything about that, Kathleen? I'm putting you on the spot, but you don't have to, but you can.
Well, I am happy just to describe a little bit more about this image. This image was taken in September over Labor Day weekend in 2012. So my father passed on the 21st of that month. And, he has advanced dementia. And we were just sitting in the visiting room quietly. And at one point, my dad turned to my son and raised his, as you can see, very fragile hand to my son. And my son ever so gently went up to greet it. And you can see the posture, the gesture of my son's hand, of how he received it, and how they're touching each other is just really an important memory for me. So. And I'm honored to have this image connected with the end of life stories. So thank you, Kimmy.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And I think just also, since we're all looking at that image, there's so much aside from the title of the project, there is so much in the space between the two of them. You know, my listening ear is imagining like what was exchanged before that, or you know, what might have been exchanged after that photo, or what is just transmitted in that silence. So I just really love that image. So anyway, thank you, Kathleen. But so you can get to the more information about the audio stories here through this link. You can also get to it from our work, end of life programs. And then there's a description of audio stories. And you can also, while you're here, look at some of our other end of life programs. The Southwest Folklife Alliance has been in partnership with Arizona End of Life Care Partnership for many years now, doing all sorts of gatherings and documentation of those gatherings and conversation through video, through food, really trying to help our community open up conversations about death and dying. And then our lens at the Folklife Alliance is bringing a cultural lens to that work. So how do the rituals of death and dying and end of life care differ in different cultural communities? So it's kind of fun to look around on that page. But I'm just going to navigate us here to the audio stories of end of life caregivers. And the reason I'm bringing us here is because I really just want to point out that we have some very comprehensive how-to guides available here to download. So you're going to learn some of this on this call right now, but there's more in-depth and additional and supplemental materials here for interviewing a caregiver or recording your own caregiving story if that's who you are and what you do. The other thing I just want to point out is that we do have our participation consent form that's downloadable here. So whoever you are going to be interviewing or whoever you are going to share this project with, we would really like the caregiver to give consent to share their story. And there's just, it's a pretty basic consent form, but it does allow, it gives a lot of agency to the caregiver to decide when and how that interview is used. And then there's a place here to upload both your interview files and also that consent form. So I just wanted to briefly go over that, and then also to just say that Ruxandra, as the audio producer of the project, she will be selecting up to 15 stories, and we'll let you know. Hopefully, you know, we'll be able to use most of them, but if for some reason, because of audio quality or something that we can't use it, we'll certainly let you know. And we hope that the rich experience of having the conversation is valuable either way. So I'm gonna stop sharing. And I'm going to turn it over to Rux. And Rux, maybe introduce yourself a little bit, and then you can kind of move into the audio or the how-to.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, and thanks for inviting me to be a part of this project. And hi, Kathleen. We met at the duck cohort. So my name's Ruxandra, but I go by Rux. I just figured out how to put that in my name on the little box. So you see Rux, R-U-X. And let's see, I've been doing audio storytelling for almost 20 years. I started out on public radio. And my mentors, the women that got me into this, that really helped me to fall in love with audio, are the Kitchen Sisters. If any of you know them or really just love audio storytelling, I encourage you to check them out. They produce really, really beautiful work. And I have been collaborating with y'all at Southwest Folklife Alliance on little projects, but this is our first bigger collaboration, and I'm very excited. And personally, I'm really moved by stories about just end of life care and caregiving in older adults. And I think obviously we don't hear enough about those. We rarely it's just such a taboo. We never get a chance to visualize, to hear those voices. And as such, I envision this as an opportunity to really kind of get at the nuance of those personal stories, you know. We've created a little guide for the sorts of questions that you may want to ask, but that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kimmy, I think that's more of a guide. You know, it's just to remind you some basic things that do need to be there, like first and last name, and you know, what is it that you do? What does it feel like to care for someone? But I'm encouraging you all and anyone who watches this recording to really delve more into the stories, the personal stories, and the kind of details that make those relationships, right, between the caregiver and the person that's being cared for strong and unique and, you know, life affirming. So let's see, shall we start with those questions first, Kimmy, or more specifically recording? You're muted.
I think we can review the questions. Would you like me to share on the screen, or do you want
You
to
can
just
share it. You can share it, yeah.
I'm trying to find them?
Or I actually have it. I can do it real quick. I have it pulled up. Let me do that.
I have it pulled up, but it's not showing up in my.
Let me see. Do you see my?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here are the questions we are most interested in. Let me see. This might be a little small for y'all to see. Okay. So obviously we'd like the person doing the interview to state their full name and location. Who do you care for? And try to speak in full sentences. That always helps when editing. Who do you care for? Describe that person you care for in your relationship. What does caring for this person look like? Describe a typical day. If you can share a specific story about those days, or perhaps that's still in the present, but what is one memorable story of that relationship, of that caregiving? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? You know, the more details, the better. Do any cultural traditions inform your work? And explain those. What are the rewards and challenges of caring for this person? And how does it make you feel to be with them at the end of their life? And then lastly, I would say this is one question that I would really like to see answered across the board is, how has caring for someone else changed you, right? Just for the record, we're not necessarily, I mean, we're definitely interested in these questions being asked of someone else, but we can imagine a lot of people just recording audio diaries themselves, or you know, wanting to answer those questions themselves and record them. So that would work just fine as well. Perhaps, you know, you can just like get on your phone or a recorder and like riff off of some of these questions and talk about experiences in the past caring for your parents or another family member. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be one person interviewing another. The important thing is that, yes, I would say getting the full name and location, who this person is, and a description of this person is, and then getting into the relationship and how this relationship changed the caregiver would be great. And an important detail is that we're asking everyone to keep it to 15 minutes. I know it sounds crazy to end up with a 2-hour file, but it's very, very easy to get there, especially when you have an intimate, close relationship and you have a lot to talk about and maybe don't get the chance to do that in your everyday. So I would just encourage everyone to keep it to 15 minutes, or at the very least, make sure that you submit it in 15-minute chunks. And that's because a lot of these audio files can end up being quite big. And they're hard to send. The way that that Kimmy has designed to deliver the sound is through Airtable, right? So it's really relying on your internet connection. And if you have a very large file, it's just going to be hard to send on. And I don't want anyone to have to edit their own audio themselves. So ideally you can just record 15 minutes at a time or just do one focused interview that goes as long as 15 minutes.
Rooks, can you say something more about how you get somebody to answer in a full sentence?
Mhm. Well, the best way is to ask them, please tell me in full sentences and remind them, right? But I think, in interviewing, we often forget how we frame questions. Sometimes they lead us to yes or no answers. So, there are ways to ask questions that prompt someone else, the interviewee, to tell you a story. And that's my favorite kind of interviewing is, besides the my name is and I live in Tucson, Arizona, it's like, remind me what it was like, or tell me what it was like when I showed up here the first time, or can you take me back to that day when this and that happened? And then asking people to start at the very beginning and at the end. So remind them of the narrative of life, right? Like some things start at a certain point and then they end at a different point. So I think it's a matter of like just being mindful that we're looking for stories, right? For human stories, where these folks are protagonists of their own lives, whether it's the caregiver or the person being cared for. And just as an interviewer, reminding them that you want them to speak in full sentences and to tell you stories. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. Let's see, I can get right to the recording if that makes most sense. Yeah. So we've identified 4 main ways to do this, just to make it easy on everyone. One, which I think is perhaps the easiest one, but it has that 3-minute limit, which can be a bummer, is to call a number. We've set up a Google Voice number, and it's all on the website, but here I'm going to share this with you again. So we've set up a 520-344-2182 number, and that's Google Voice. It's all based online, but what it does is it plays a recorded message, and when it beeps, like a regular answering machine, you can just start telling your story, and you could say, my name is so-and-so, I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and this is my story, and this is how caregiving changed me. I believe a good story can be told in 3 minutes. Just, a lot of stories on public radio are about 3 minutes long. So it's perfectly possible, but it might not be for everyone, but there's that option, especially for folks that don't really want to deal with recorders and sending files. You can just call this number, and when the answering machine beep comes on, you just state all those details. And if it turns out to be a really great story, we might be able to call you and maybe to interview you, or anyway, if it's a story that merits more than 3 minutes, we can figure out a way to make it a little longer. But that's one way to reach us and to share the story. Another way, excuse me, is to record on your phone. Excuse me, and that is also quite easy. The main thing that I remind people is that this is where your microphone is. It's at the bottom. Right? I've had people try to record like this and it just sounds really crappy. You have to remember this is the microphone, and you don't want to be too close, because what happens is called you pop your P's. It distorts the sound and it doesn't sound great. So I'd say keeping it about 6 inches away from your mouth is ideal. But that's how you can record. There's Ocho. How you can record via your phone. You can go to, if you have an iPhone, there's a voice memo app. I mean, I'm pretty sure folks here know about recording on your phone, but just in case you don't, there's the voice memo app, and you literally just press record, and that's that. After that, after recording, you can just send it on. Can you go to that Airtable on your phone? You probably can, or you can send it to an email, right?
Yeah, well, you have to upload it. So it exists as a file in your phone, right? So,
Right, existed. So you'd probably have to email it to yourself
Yeah.
and then upload it to, to the link. Again, if you end up with a very big file, it takes longer to send, or it might not even send at all. So I would encourage you to keep it somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes at most. Another way to do this is through a recorder. This is the recorder I use, but you absolutely don't need to have this sort of equipment to record good audio. And in general, you don't need fancy equipment to get good audio to get broadcast quality audio. But this has a lot more bells and whistles than most people need, than even I need. I don't even know how to, how to use this other than record and stop and play. But the idea is the same as the phone. You want to keep this about 6 inches away from the mouth. So one thing I've noticed a lot is people often record an interview or a conversation and they put it on the table. And that's a major no-no. I discourage you all from doing that, because typically it's not pointed directly at the mouth. You want it to be directly pointed to the speaker's mouth. And also what happens is sometimes people like move about the room, they forget about the recorder, and they forget that the quality does matter. A good quality audio recording, like what you might hear in a podcast or on public radio, is directly pointed at the speaker's mouth, and that's what gives you that sound, that intimate sound that you feel like you're sitting right next to them and they're talking to you, and that's what we want. So I would encourage you to always keep in mind just where the microphone is, and that you want it to be, pretty close to the speaker's mouth. And again, this is a bit more complicated, but if you have a recorder, I imagine you know how to get it from here to your desktop, and then you can, upload it to our website.
can I say one thing about that?
Of course.
Just,
Yeah.
I think both for the phone and if you're using a fancier recorder, is that if you are holding it, hold it like a handshake that you're kind of not letting go of, because these things, especially the fancier recorders, they can be very sensitive and they can pick up every time your hand shifts. And that might be the time when someone's saying something really interesting. And I think the iPhone is maybe a little less sensitive, or the other, not just iPhone, people use other phones too. So to hold it firmly without moving your hands around a lot.
That's right. Or if you wear a lot of rings, whenever you're touching the equipment, that noise translates to the recording and it can ruin a recording. But I actually just edited a piece where the folks who recorded the interviews were typing on a computer the whole time. I guess they were taking notes while the recording was happening, and there's this horrible sound of typing throughout that you can't get rid of. Basically, if you're in a loud room where there's a TV going, you can't split the recording of the TV, what we call the ambient sound, from the sound of the person's voice. They come as one single recording, right? Like there's the sound, the noises in the room, and then there's the person's voice. So if you're in a noisy setting to begin with, there's no fixing that. I would, think about going to a quieter room, or even outside if it's not a noisy place. Like it's nice if we can have sound of, interview outside. But that's infinitely better than recording in front of the TV or radio, or, if your kid is like super loud and anything like that. So yes, it's as much the recorder is going to pick up whatever handling you're doing with the recorder as the ambient noises all around you. So those two things are important to keep in mind. But other than that, you really can't go wrong. It's as long as the person's voice is heard clearly, and that you didn't stop and record a lot. I encourage you to hit record and just leave it recording until it's over. Then you're going to be able to pick up everything you would need, and you can send us that file. It's going to be great. Oh, one other quick thing. Some recorders record in different file formats. The standard files that audio editing software works with are MP3s and WAV files. And both phones record in a different format, M4A, that we should be able to work with. But please make sure you send either MP3, M4A, or WAV. I don't see why someone might use yet another format, but those are the formats that we typically work with. Oh, and then the fourth way that you may want to do this is via Zoom, like we're in right now. And that is it's a little more involved, but basically when you're setting up the Zoom call, you have to establish that you want to record it. It asks you whether you want to record the conversation with, I guess via video, if you want to record a video or audio, and you can select audio. And then it's going to ask you if you want to record to the cloud or to the local computer. You definitely have to specify before the conversation starts where you want to record it to. But that is a little more involved, and I'd be happy to walk everyone through that process if you choose to do Zoom, or if you've done it already, then you may as well try that. But basically you have to set it up, and then you have to wait till you get that email that sends you that file, and then you have to then forward it to us. But I just want to remind everyone not to bother with editing anything out. If there's anything where, any section in the recording where someone took a long pause, or there's a funny noise in the background or whatever, don't worry, we will definitely clean it up. That's part of my job, is to tighten it and make it sound as great as possible. So I don't want anyone to feel like they have to get on Audition or whatever audio editing software and add sound effects or anything like that. It should just be a raw recording of a conversation. But yeah, so there's those four ways. There's a Google Voice, and where you call a number and leave a message. You could use voice memo on your phone or an app like it. You can use just a regular audio recorder and send us the file, or you can use Zoom to record the conversation. And all of that then we'll need to go to, and here
I have it here.
Okay, yeah, let's walk through that process real quick.
The upload.
Yes. Great.
Yeah. So
and that's also the file where you have to give your consent, or no?
You will upload that form also.
Oh, you upload both.
So
Yeah.
it's asking, so this is assuming that you have done an interview with somebody. So it's asking for your info, and it's also asking for the caregiver's information. And if it's also asking if you left a voicemail story, to give the date and time of your call, in case for some reason you didn't say your name, or just so that we can kind of match the phone call with this form. And then there's a place to upload the consent form, and then there's a place to upload the audio, although here we say 30 minutes. So
okay, well, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then MP3, M4A, and WAV file. And I also wanted to say that if you're listening to this now, or you're watching this later, and the things that we're talking about in terms of recording these 4 ways don't make any sense to you, you are welcome to contact one of us. Both of our information is on in one of the downloads, and I can add it to the website as well. So if you're really confused about how to record and you don't have anybody at home or in your family or in your community to help you, you can contact us, and we will walk you more closely through these ways of recording.
Mm-hmm. If I could just add one more thing, Kimmy, actually, that I just thought, for anyone that hasn't recorded before, or even had such a conversation, right? I just think it's important to forget about anything you may have heard before, and just be yourself, and encourage the person that you're interviewing to be themselves. I think people can really clam up and get intimidated by recorders, right? Like they feel like they have to be an expert somehow, right? Or that they have to perform. But the whole idea and what makes audio beautiful in my mind, the kind of audio that I like to listen to, is about that intimacy. It's about distinguishing someone as their own person and hearing like the cracks in their voice and the emotion and the pauses and all that stuff. And that's why I think it'll be great to get these raw recordings that we can kind of show that in the context of caregiving, because they're stories that we rarely hear from, and there's so much taboo around these relationships, around this work, around that reality. And so yes, I think it's okay to come up with a list of bullet points, perhaps that you have there right next to your recorder to remind yourself about what you want to ask about. But other than that, I think the best recordings are just a conversation between two people, right? And they bring us right in there as listeners. They don't have to sound like an official radio voice or anything like that. I teach radio at the university, and kids often, they feel like they need to sound like primetime newscasters or something. But yeah, you want to go the opposite direction. You want to just be you and encourage. And, as the interviewer, our jobs are also to make that person just feel really comfortable, and and to trust us. So sometimes that takes much longer than the interview itself, and that's good. That's okay. So yes, that's it. I can't think. Did I forget anything, Kimmy, you think?
I don't think so. I was gonna just open it to questions if anybody has any questions, and I have a few, but I'll see what anyone else has to ask.
I actually have just like a quick clarifying question. Are you guys also interested in former caregiver stories as well? Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to double check and make sure.
Yes.
It's like, I'm gonna pass this around to a few people that I know, and I just want to make sure that like that question is covered when I tell them. So
Yeah, because I think that
that'd be great.
that work has insight no matter when it happened.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go for it, Kathleen.
Are you sure? Okay. When I first heard of this portion of this overarching body of work, I had thought that, and I don't know if this is relevant, so you can let me know if it fits in with what you're looking for. I've been medical and financial power of attorney of an elder friend for the last 5 years. So I'm not involved in his immediate physical care, but I'm involved with managing all the different moving parts in his life. And he has just been placed on hospice. And I thought when I heard about the opportunity to participate in this aspect of the project, it would be a nice way to have a record of Lou and what our life has been for the last 5 years. And I didn't know if that would be acceptable, because it's not direct caregiving. It's all the foundational care around him to make sure that he got what he needs. So, and so you could let me, you don't have to answer that right now, but that's a question that I have. Is it relevant to what you're looking for right now? So.
I mean, I can answer it as I think it is. To me, it's part of the end of life process, and those are details that people don't want to think about and don't know how to think about. And obviously, your story wouldn't be a how-to, but it would be shedding light on that this is also part of caregiving. I mean, I think that death doulas do a lot of that kind of work too. So I'm fine with it. Brooks, are you?
Yeah, I think that's great.
All right, thank you.
Isaac?
Yeah, I was wondering, can the interviews be done in another language with translation?
we talked about that. Yeah, we'd love it. I guess in terms of capacity, I can do Spanish, but that's it. So if it's from another language, I guess we should figure out how it can be handled. If we should record someone doing a live translation of it, or because it's going to live in audio form, right?
Right.
Online. So we're going to need to hear it. We're
Yeah.
not going to get a chance to do subtitles. So
Live would probably be best for.
I think so, but that would be awesome. That'd be great.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could potentially also do where we hear the primary voice, and then if the other is recorded later, those files
Right.
could live on top, they could be simultaneously living on top of each other, so to speak, so that you wouldn't necessarily have to translate live, but you could translate the file while listening or something, so that it's timed.
Right. That's a good point. Live might be tough to edit down if it needs to be edited down, whereas it's just more involved, right? But you could do the interview in a native language and then have that person that can literally translate both as a separate file, and then I can put them together.
And it might be that sometimes we hear the native language, and sometimes we hear, a translated version, and we might not even need to have them be the same.
Right. Yeah. What language are you thinking, Isaac? Or
I was just thinking in general. Yeah.
yeah,
Love that.
I think that would be really cool.
I have a question, and that is that I'm assuming, and I also sort of know, but that you will be selecting not necessarily an entire story, right? You might be selecting snippets, excerpts, still trying to develop or allow some sense of a whole person. But if someone sends in 15 minutes, you might not edit a whole 15-minute file, right?
Right. I think the way we discussed it is we might want them to be up to 5 minutes long per story. And so just like, a photographer shoots like, 100 images to select 3, same with audio. You want to have lots to choose from. You want to select the very best passages in an audio file. So yes, I still encourage you to get those 15 minutes up to 30 minutes. And then the hope is that out of those, that big file, we can really isolate the parts that we definitely need to be there, like your name and, some key questions, but then also include like a compellingly told story or something that really brings this person to life, as like someone in from This American Life, this really great radio program calls it creates movies for the ear. Like we want to be able to visualize, right, through the storytelling. So, whenever you get someone who's like using a lot of description or talking about how they feel, I always joke that it's almost like running an amateur therapy session. Like ask people to talk to you about their feelings. The more we get feelings, the more that's likely to be the segment in the interview that resonates with people. So yeah, but we will definitely tighten those.
So just to communicate, to the folks that you are interviewing, that this is not an oral history. This is not someone's life that's being recorded and then presented in its entirety. I mean, obviously in 15 minutes, you can't do that. And that, possibly, I can imagine in some instances where the exchange, if an interview, the exchange itself is excerpted. So maybe part of your question and their answer. I can also imagine in some cases where you as the interviewer might be edited out, and it's not personal. But I think it's important to communicate to the caregivers whose stories you are asking for, is that they are contributing to a larger whole, like a quilt of voices versus sort of their only one story, right? Because I don't want to confuse folks or let them down you know, that their entire story wasn't captured. But that notion of contributing to that their personal experience is extremely significant, and that it also lives within a chorus of other caregivers.
And I actually am curious. I have a question for you, Kimmy. I'm assuming that any sort of like take on or perspective on caregiving is fair game, is acceptable, right? Like it does not have to be about strictly positive experiences. Like you're looking for the whole range of
Yeah.
experiences
Because
for people.
the honesty, yeah, the honest experience.
Mhm.
So if I were to interview my aunt, the experience might not be that positive, and there would be probably some cuss words. So don't edit those.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think this being something that's not going to be aired on radio, you don't have to follow FCC rules, which means you can have all the cuss words you want as far as I'm concerned.
And if it does go on radio, we can beat them, you know, at some point.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Great. Do you have anything else to say, Rux?
I can't think of anything other than I would love to help out anybody or guide them through this process. I know it can be pretty intimidating for someone doing it for the first time, and I really love to help facilitate interviews. So I think my email is on that form. I will drop it here. Just again, I'd be happy to talk to anybody who needs some help, or even if I could record the interview, I'm happy to do that as well, remotely, of course, from here. So we would have to do something via Zoom or phone, but yeah, just anyone, please reach out if I can help. And I'm really looking forward to hearing all these stories. So thank you all for being here.
And please share with your networks. It will be fun to see who hears about it and who follows through. So please share. And you can also write me at any time with the questions.
So you are open to us letting other caregivers know, like whether it's locally or elsewhere. I mean, I'm thinking the woman who is in charge of the home where my friend is. I mean, I imagine she has a wealth of sharing to do, and how, you know, the number of people that have passed under her care and all of that. And we have talked, you know, and about, you know, the pending loss of our friend, and, you know, the man that she's taking care of. And yeah, so you are open to more people participate. Okay.
Yeah, and they do not have to be Arizona residents.
Yeah.
Either.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. We are really excited about this project and about your stories and the stories of those you know. So we look forward to listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a good one.
Thank you, Kimmy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.